I need to ask you, would you agree to be, we are recording? Is it okay with you?
Yes.
Pedir para todo mundo se manifestar que concorda com a gravação. Ok, eu também concordo. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure and an honor for me to introduce you to Dr. Taylor Wayne Race again. Just to remind you, Dr. Taylor is Associate Professor from the Department of Curriculum and Instruction of the Texas State University. His closing conference today is entitled Fostering Strategic and Self-Regulated Learning Within Educational Contexts, Current Practice, and Future Directions. You are very welcome, Professor Taylor. And thank you, Professor Taylor, for all the knowledge you shared with us and will be sharing with us now.
All right, thank you. Obrigado, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I only wish I could be with you all in person, but this will have to do. And I'm in a separate room, I think, as you know, so I'm not in the room with you in Google, but I'd like to do some more interactive activities for this closing talk to help learn from one another and consolidate the information that we learned throughout this symposium. I want to reiterate some of the ideas that I talked about in my opening talk, and then elaborate on and expand them in more detail. So in the opening talk, I talked a lot about the model of strategic learning. And I use this model in my research and in my practice. In fact, whenever I teach learning to learn courses, I teach students about the model of strategic learning. But I also use it to guide how I think about research. And I have some references here that describe the model of strategic learning and a lot of the evidence that supports it. So here it is again. And just to refresh your memory, there are four major components. There are skill, will, and self-regulation. And many of the factors known to influence students' learning that are under their direct control are organized under the skill, will, and self-regulation components of the model. And so skill has to do with students' knowledge about using different learning strategies, as well as their skill in using them. And when I say learning strategies under skill, I'm referring to things like elaboration strategies, for example, summarizing the information in your own words, teaching it to someone else, comparing and contrasting ideas, and organizational strategies like creating a matrix of concepts and definitions and examples, creating a graphic organizer or an outline, as well as more rehearsal and mnemonic type devices that might not be sufficient for meaningful learning, but could still be useful in some ways, and as well as reading and listening comprehension, note-taking and note-using, preparing for tests, using reasoning and problem-solving skills. So how we help students to develop these types of thinking strategies are all part of skill. And will has to do with motivation. And these are a lot of things housed under here, like setting, analyzing, and using goals. Thinking about the future and who you want to be, what you want to become, and having a rich understanding of a future time perspective. Things like emotions and feelings about learning, how to make emotions more positive that drive you towards learning, and to deal with negative emotions that interfere with your learning. Beliefs. Some beliefs can be enabling. They help you. Other beliefs can be sabotaging. So self-efficacy is a major belief. Attribution beliefs. And you've heard about this throughout the conference again and again. And goals and the different properties of goals. Specific and measurable goals help with motivation. Goals that are challenging yet realistic. And goal ownership. having a goal because you want it, as opposed to feeling controlled, like someone else wants you to have that goal. So helping students take ownership of their goals is a big part of the will component. And the last component is self-regulation. And this has to do with managing your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in pursuit of goals. And so a big part of this is using a systematic approach to learning, where you set goals and plan strategically for how to reach them. You monitor those goals over time and evaluate them formatively, like evaluating them during a task, as well as summatively after the task is over, evaluating how you performed to help inform future goal setting and learning. But it also involves things that, such as concentrating, time managing, monitoring your comprehension and understanding while reading or listening to a lecture, and regulating feelings and motivations and things like this. And the outside of the model refers to the academic environment. And these are things we can help students develop knowledge about, such as their expectations of learning tasks, available resources on Canvas, and things like this. So I just wanted to refresh your memory of the model of strategic learning and tell you a little bit. So again, it organizes many of the findings from educational psychology into one model. And I just wanted to clarify that it is congruent with Zimmerman's model of self-regulation, as well as other learning and motivation theories such as information processing and expectancy value theory. It just varies in scope and emphasis. And the model of strategic learning really organizes factors under students' skill, will, self-regulation in the academic environment. And it emphasizes factors that are under students' control, that they can learn about and improve in, as well as interactions, showing that skill, will, and self-regulation must work together, much like the systems of the body. If one system fails, it affects your vitality. The same is true with skill, will, and self-regulation. They all need to be functioning together for successful learning to occur. And so you learned a lot of ideas throughout this symposium. And many of the fundamentals of what you learned may very likely hold across educational contexts. But I think it's important to note that educators will likely need to adapt approaches to fit the unique environments in which they teach, the students they serve, and the instructional styles that they prefer. So as you think about the things that you've learned throughout this symposium and how you might apply it to your unique environments and your student populations, I'd like to open it up for discussion to hear about what you've been thinking about and organize the discussion with the model of strategic learning. So now I'm going to pose a question to you, the audience, and you can type your ideas into the chat. And really, any idea is fine. It doesn't need to be a big, elaborate thing that you're going to do. It could be very simple, something simple. It could be more complex. But any idea is perfectly acceptable, and we'd love to hear what you think. So the first question is, what approaches could you or do you use to improve aspects of students' skill? So this could be something you're currently doing. It could be something that you might want to do in the future. But what ideas do you have for improving students' skill? What do you do in the classroom? So we'll monitor the chat as you think about your answers to this question and see how it goes.
Taylor, while we are waiting from the audience answers, it would be nice if you could use the user slides in a full screen.
Oh.
It would be better for the audience.
So sorry.
No, no problem, but it's really nice. It's much better now. So we are now waiting for the audience answers.
Should I go back and show the previous slides?
There is one that's written in English. Our first answer was sent in English. Being trustworthy as a teacher, first of all.
Ah, great response. One individual said, be trustworthy as a teacher, first of all.
Yes.
And this is such an important idea because to teach students skills, you need to get buy-in with the student to develop a rapport and a relationship so that they can feel like they're in a safe and trustworthy environment and that you care about them. They'll be much more likely to take risks when they know that their mistakes won't be viewed as punitive, but as mistakes can be viewed as opportunities to learn. Great response. If we could get one more, that would be great, and I'll move to the next question.
Yes, we have a lot of answers here, so I'm going to read to you. To use positive reinforcement, to recognize merit, to teach how to underline, to take notes, but also to guide the students towards reflecting how to use them.
Yes, so we've had a number.
Time management, underlying, no, summarizing, conceptual map.
So we've had a lot of great ideas in the chat. I'll just reiterate a few that have been communicated to me. One was positive reinforcement. So as students perform something and they do a good job, to reinforce them with praise, to show, reinforce even that maybe that they used a good strategy or they put in a lot of effort. That type of feedback can be very helpful, that positive reinforcement, as well as attributing your comments to their use of strategies and effort. Some folks have mentioned outlining and note-taking, but also taking that a step further and providing students opportunities to reflect about their outlining and note-taking to learn what's working well and what could be improved. Some other folks had mentioned concept maps were very helpful and useful for them. So I'm going to move on to the next question because I can't read everything, but you can see in the chat. And so continue to talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to move to the next slide now. And this is a very similar question, but now for will, for motivation. What approaches could you or do you use to improve aspects of students' motivation? So let's switch the topic a little bit to think specifically about what we do for motivation. Now, what I'm already noticing is some of the things you do with skill could affect skill and will. And this is exactly what the model is trying to show, that skill and will interact with each other. So you could help students with their skill, and it can in turn affect their will, and vice versa. It's reciprocal. But now let's really think about what we do intentionally to help students with their will. And if you would like to share, if you teach in elementary, primary school, secondary, or college, that might help too, so that we have a better understanding of strategies you're using and how they might vary by educational context. You could even share if you teach a particular subject area.
We are having, just to let you know, for the first question, I understand you moved to the second one, but just a brief comment. Wonderful, there is a whole bunch of wonderful answers here in the chat. Then I can send to you after. Moreover, regarding your second question, someone says small tasks and teaching SRA strategy feedback, teaching from different languages to incentivize students not to give up, establishing small steps for them, Bringing real cases into their knowledge so that they can apply the real cases.
Can you stop there? Because that's enough for me to remember.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, everybody, we have some great responses to the first two questions. I'm going to reiterate a couple of the responses to the second question about motivation. One idea was to break up tasks into small pieces to make it more manageable for students. Another idea was to teach using different languages to help connect with students and show your appreciation for their culture and their language, and to make them feel like they belong. Tell me more, Evelyn, sorry.
To strengthen the student self-efficacy, to acknowledge students' progress, and the people, someone is saying, acknowledging students' progress motivates students.
Yes, acknowledging students' progress motivates them, trying to strengthen their self-efficacy. Excellent responses. Way to go.
Checking the students' sources of self-efficacy.
Checking the sources of self-efficacy, such as vicarious experience, building a history of successes. These are kind of sources of self-efficacy. And verbal persuasion. You can help persuade students. That's another type of self-efficacy. Another idea that was given by someone was bringing in real-world ideas to your teaching can really help motivate students.
Yes. We have
I'm going to move to the next slide now.
Okay.
And now we think a little bit more about what approaches could you use to improve aspects of students' self-regulation? What approaches could you or do you use to improve aspects of students' self-regulation?
Taylor, two ideas, using rubrics and feedback, peer discussion.
Two really good ideas here. One is using rubric feedback. Feedback really can help students learn from their mistakes and self-regulate. And having a rubric really can help lay out your expectations for students.
Provide students with reflective questions.
Ooh, really good idea. Provide students with reflective questions. This is very much engaging students in self-regulation and metacognitive awareness.
To work towards developing the metacognition.
To work towards developing metacognition, generate an awareness of your own thinking, reflecting on what works, what doesn't, and then exercising control to regulate it.
Plan activities to help students manage their time.
Plan activities to help students manage their time. This is something that can be really nice that a teacher would do for students. I often will help students even with their test preparation by using class time to have them think about how to manage their time for studying for an upcoming test. And so these are all really great ideas. I'm now going to move to the next slide. I realize I'm just throwing a lot at you very quickly. But I just want to reiterate just a few ideas for each. The last one is the academic environment. And from my research with Evelyn, I've noticed that, the types of resources available to students in college, particularly because that's where we've been focusing, vary a little bit between the US and Brazil. I'm not sure how common it is to have learning centers and writing centers and free online tutoring and group tutoring for large lecture classes. The U.S. tends to have this in both community colleges and four-year institutions. Most all colleges have these types of resources. But resources don't need to just be centers and things like that. It can be the instructor, engaging with parents. There are many academic resources, online materials, how to help students develop knowledge even about the academic tasks and the instructions you have for those tasks. So what kind of approaches do you use to help students become more knowledgeable about available resources on your campus or in your school, and how to help them develop more knowledge about the resources in your class and using you as an instructor as a resource?
Someone said, I'm not sure if it's for the third question or not. For the fourth question or not. No, I think no. This one nobody answered yet. We can't wait a little bit, and then maybe you can give us some suggestions. Someone say there are peer tutoring.
Peer tutoring. Someone was saying is maybe a more common available resource, and helping students engage in this peer tutoring. And you can do that just among classmates. Group activity and collaborative learning can be a great way to engage in peer-to-peer tutoring. So that's a great idea.
Someone say think of how teachers and tutors can help and provide students with some ideas and possibilities about how can teachers and tutors help.
Explaining to students how teachers and tutors can help was another nice response.
People are asking you whether you can rephrase or repeat your question.
Oh, okay. To repeat the question, what approaches could you or do you use to improve students' knowledge of the academic environment? And when I refer to the academic environment, I mean things like available resources for students, how to help them develop knowledge about the assignments in your class so that the expectations are clear to students, how to develop knowledge about cultivating a social support system. That can be especially important in college if students leave home, to develop a social support system, as well as to help develop knowledge about your expectations as a teacher. So the academic environment really involves a lot of different things. But I guess, so how do you help students develop knowledge about these different aspects of the environment? They're not under their...
I have two answers. Someone say that she likes to use stories, life stories, in the sense that life stories about learning strategies used during the students' school life. And the other students say new students integration, academic integration the first 6 months. Senior students could help being mentors.
Excellent ideas. So one was to share life stories with students about using learning strategies and things like this. Another was new student orientation and new student transition courses, things like this that might help students within their first 6 months to develop knowledge about the academic environment, the expectations that it has. And peer mentoring was another really great idea for helping students learn about the academic environment. So I really appreciate your responses.
There is one more two answers. You also use older senior students to show the nuance, the possibilities, that the resources available at the university.
Use senior students to help show newer students the available resources at the university. And that's such a great idea because it's doing multiple things. It's helping them build relationships and feel a sense of belonging. And it's also helping them develop knowledge of the academic environment. So it's just a really wonderful idea. I'm going to move to the next slide now. You can continue to talk in the chat if you'd like to, but I'm going to go on to summarize some of the major ideas that you probably heard throughout this symposium as well in my talk about teaching strategic and self-regulated learning. Here are some major ideas. Teach students theoretical concepts about learning, motivation, and self-regulation. Translate this theory into terms students can understand. It's going to be different for students in primary, secondary, and post-secondary education. It'll be different for graduate students. This is, when I say teach students theory, I don't mean teach them theory like it's a graduate level research course. I mean, use the ideas from theory, those concepts that explain why learning works and why learning strategies are useful, things like this. Explain it, but you don't want to explain the detailed nuances of every theory because it would be too much. So to make it practical for students, it involves translating the theory into terms students can understand, given the level they're at. Guide students in applying theoretical concepts to their own studying. Use direct instruction. That's, for example, telling them what a strategy is and why it can help them learn. Use modeling. Show them, you demonstrate how to use the strategy. Use guided practice with feedback. Allow them to practice using a strategy and give them feedback on how they're doing. And the last one, use collaborative learning, because students can teach each other the approaches they've used to help build their strategies. Oftentimes, as experts, we forget to articulate the small steps that we take for granted. And students, as they're learning together, will stumble through many of the small steps that we may gloss over. So collaborative learning can be especially important. Encourage students with authentic and supportive feedback. Positive feedback is really good, but if it's not authentic, it won't work. You have to be real with students. They can tell when you're blowing smoke, so to speak. Help students focus on evaluating themselves over time, not comparing themselves to one another. I want to improve from who I was yesterday. I don't want to necessarily be better than everyone in the class, but I want to be better from who I was yesterday. Trying to reinforce this idea. Social comparisons can cause lots of problems. Help students develop awareness of their own learning strengths and areas for improvement. Assessments can help with this. Learning strategies assessments. It can help students diagnose their strengths and areas for improvement. But there are plenty of other ways to do this as well. Self-reflection is a really great tool for this. Students perform a task and then reflect about what worked, what didn't work. After a test is a great opportunity for students to consider their strengths and areas for improvement. Provide opportunities for students to plan, monitor, and evaluate their strategy development over time and on a variety of different tasks. Research on transfer, research on looking to see if a student can learn a strategy and then apply it to a new situation. One of the things that affects transfer is the mere suggestion that they can apply it in a different situation. So tell students that explicitly. Say, here's a strategy I'm teaching you. You could use this in your other course, or you could use this to solve problems around the house in everyday life. And so giving students opportunities to practice on a variety of different tasks can really help show that that is true. And the last 2 points: support students' autonomy, give them choice, and encourage them to individualize their approaches. What works for one student may not work well for another student. The idea is to give them options and allow them to explore for themselves what works best for them. Trying to give them a recipe, a strict rule for what works for them probably isn't a good idea. You want to guide them in figuring out what is true for themselves. And then finally, build a safe and supportive community and foster a sense of belonging. And what Helena talked about yesterday, she really got into some great details for how to do this in your syllabus and in your teaching. And I highly support what she was saying. So overall, we're trying to help students build a repertoire of learning strategies. Just like a carpenter that has a tool belt of a variety of different tools, we want students to have a tool belt filled with a variety of different learning strategies that they can use to help solve different problems. Imagine if a carpenter had a favorite hammer and all she used was that one hammer. That would be a problem. Sometimes you need a soft mallet to hit something, and your favorite hammer is not the best tool. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. The same is true with learning. Students need to have a lot of different strategies. And so there's 2 ways to describe students' repertoire of learning strategies. One is fluency. That's the number of learning strategies they know about and know how to use well. Flexibility has to do with the different categories of learning strategies. So for example, a student might know very many mnemonic devices like memorization techniques, and they might know rote learning strategies. They might know a lot of them. They might know, 30 different strategies, but that is not sufficient. Students also need to be flexible. They need to know organizational and elaboration strategies. Another way to think about students' repertoire of learning strategies is whether those learning strategies are domain general or domain specific. Now, when I have worked in learning to learn courses, we focused a lot on domain general strategies. These are strategies that can be used across academic disciplines. For example, teaching the material to someone else is a great learning strategy that can be used in math, literacy, science, history. You can use that across the board. Same with all the other strategies that I've been talking about: summarizing, compare and contrast. These are domain general strategies. Domain specific strategies are specific to a certain academic discipline. And if you're familiar with the literature on disciplinary literacies, this is a great place to look to think about domain specific strategies. Helping students to think like a historian, helping students to think like a mathematician, and what that requires. And a lot of the strategies that they might use might be specific to that domain, as well as the kind of the approaches. So those are some things to think about when helping students to build a repertoire of learning strategies. And I'll reiterate some of the other points that I talked about with teaching learning strategies. We want to help students to develop 3 types of strategy knowledge: declarative, procedural, and conditional. And I explained what those were in my first talk. We also want to help students to develop metacognitive awareness and become more metacognitive. So there's kind of three types of processes related to metacognition that I like to talk about. One is awareness. This is recognizing strengths and areas for improvement in one's own studying approaches. So monitoring is observing one's own thinking and keeping track of patterns of behavior. One of the projects that I do in my class is a self-change project. Students identify an aspect of themselves that they would like to change, a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior that they would like to increase or decrease. And then they monitor that over a week, and they keep track. They don't try to regulate it. They just keep track of that pattern of thinking or that pattern of behavior. And then the next week, they set goals to control it. And this is taking action to regulate one's own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in pursuit of their goals. And so in that last week, they attempt to change it, and they also attempt to monitor it as well. So this is kind of an idea of a way to encourage metacognitive thinking and awareness. So a great way to help with awareness is strategies, learning strategies assessments. And one that I'm an author on that I have a bias towards because I really think it's a useful tool is the Learning and Study Strategies Inventory. And this was developed by my mentor, Clarilyn Weinstein. There's a little picture of her there. And this assessment measures students' awareness about and use of learning and study strategies related to skill, will, and self-regulation. And it's now in its third edition, which has 60 items and 10 different scales. And Evely and her team have translated it into Brazilian Portuguese. And we're currently collecting data on it and have already published some results related to it. There's also a high school version. This one is for college, but there's also one for high school. And Evely has also translated that version as well. So it could be something that would be more available for use for research and stuff like this. I'll go over the scales. Anxiety. This has to do with coping with worry about school and academic performance. And I've included an example item. I feel very panicky when I take an important test. Attitude. Students' attitude and interest in college and achieving academic success. An example item would be, I only study the subjects I like. Concentration. This is the ability to direct and maintain attention on academic tasks. An example item would be, my mind wanders a lot when I study. Information processing. This is use of strategies to help learn new information. For example, I try to find relationships between what I am learning and what I already know. Motivation, self-discipline, and willingness to work hard at academic tasks. For example, when work is difficult, I either give up or study only the easy parts. Selecting main ideas. Skill at identifying important information for further study. Example, I have difficulty identifying the important points in my readings. Self-testing, use of reviewing and comprehension monitoring techniques to assess understanding. Example, I stop periodically while reading and mentally go over or review what was said. Test strategies, use of strategies to prepare for and take exams. Example, I have difficulty adapting my studying to different types of courses. Time management, use of time management principles for academic tasks. Example, I find it hard to stick to a study schedule. Using academic resources. Use of academic resources commonly available at post-secondary institutions. Example, I am not comfortable asking for help from instructors in my courses. So this gives you an idea of what the Acee assesses and the type of feedback that it can give to students and instructors. And this feedback can be useful to know at the beginning of a class, for example, or at the beginning of college, to help direct students' learning and help them target areas for improvement. It can also be useful as a pre-post assessment to help students track how they've changed over time. And it can be used to evaluate the success of your approaches. The Acee modules are an online program designed to help students improve in each of the 10 areas the Acee assesses. And I'm now an author on the second edition of the Acee modules. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I went about thinking of how to help students improve in each of the 10 areas of the Acee. There's 10 modules, one for each Acee scale. Each module is comprised of 5 to 8 short lessons. We try to keep the lessons short and sweet so students don't feel overwhelmed. Each lesson involves a short reading to introduce a main idea. And it's followed by an activity to help students apply that idea to their own lives. And this is unfortunately not available in Brazilian Portuguese yet. The Acee modules, I want to tell you a little bit about the activities. So the activities vary, but here are some of the ideas that we have students do in the activities. We have them reflect on their previous learning experiences and their typical studying approaches to help them generate awareness of what they have done in the past and how they felt about it and what they thought worked and what didn't. Activities are also used to help students practice using the learning strategies that we're teaching them. We also use the activities to help students evaluate how well they thought those strategies worked after practicing them. We also use the activities to help students plan for what they want to do in the future. And when we have students apply to a variety of different learning contexts. For example, we'll have them think about college in general. We'll have them think about specific courses they're taking. We'll have them think about different tasks, like a writing assignment versus a test. And we'll also have them consider everyday uses. Also, the Acee modules end with a short quiz, and it's easy quiz, just true-false questions to help remind them of the main ideas. Students usually get like 90 or 100% on the quiz. It's not really designed to be a hard quiz. It's designed to have them just kind of have a quick assessment of what they remember. And we also end with having them summarize what they learned and to discuss next steps. And that's just a quick little reflection. And that models good teaching and good learning. I just want to see where I'm at with time. Okay, I think I'm okay. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I do in each of the modules for each of the 10 areas, some of the main ideas that I emphasize. So under skill, we have information processing, selecting main ideas, and test strategies. And so for information processing, a big part of that module is to emphasize the importance of using deep-level learning strategies, such as elaboration strategies and organizational strategies. We also talk a little bit about rote strategies and show that it can be useful in minimal circumstances, but we really try to emphasize that students need to use deep-level strategies. Surface-level strategies are not sufficient. And then, of course, we have them reflect on their strategies, practice them, evaluate them, and plan for how they want to move forward in the future. And that's really true of all of these modules: reflect, practice, evaluate, plan. Selecting main ideas. we talk about and help students learn about the difference between a topic, a main idea, and supporting details. So that's a major thing. We allow students to practice with very simple activities, identifying topics, main ideas, and supporting details. But it goes beyond that. We also talk about identifying important information in the course. So for example, becoming aware of the requirements of different academic tasks, using the syllabus, using the instructor as a resource to identify important information to study for tests. And we have them practice this kind of strategy. Test strategies. We emphasize before, during, and after the test. And we emphasize to students that the before strategies are the most important. Students often think that they can develop process of elimination and other type of test wiseness strategies, and that will be enough for them to do well. And that's just not true. Students need to learn the information, and what they do before the test in large part determines how well they perform on that test. So we really emphasize a lot before. And we also talk about different types of tests and have them think about how their preparation for those tests might vary depending on the type of test it is. Anxiety. Here we talk a lot about how anxiety works. So there's an event like a test, and it's students' perception of a threat that is really the cause of their anxiety. And so we try to target that perception of threat. And that leads to consequences like feeling nervous and feeling nauseous. And so there's two approaches that we talk about. One's more of a long-term approach, and that's changing your beliefs in self-talk. So if students have low self-efficacy, that's a belief that might make them feel threatened. You know, if you think you're not going to do well on a test or that you can't learn the material, that will likely lead to anxiety. So how do we modify that belief? And so we have them try to identify the beliefs that are underlying their anxieties and the type of self-talk that might be underlying their anxieties. But we also talk about in-the-moment strategies. If you're suffering from anxiety in the moment, what can you do to regulate it? And so we talk about relaxation techniques, breathing techniques, ways to kind of get your mind to refocus on the task at hand. Attitude. Here we talk about the personal significance of education. We get students to think about their life goals and how college and school fit into their life goals. We also talk about cultivating positive attitudes and trying to find subjects they like and think about that, but also for subjects they don't like so much, how to generate a positive attitude to stay going. Motivation. Here we talk a lot about goal setting, how to set specific and measurable goals that are challenging and realistic, how to build self-efficacy. We talk about attributions and growth mindsets. Under self-regulation, we address issues with concentration. Here we help students identify internal and external distractions that they're experiencing. We have them practice monitoring their comprehension. For example, I have them watch a video and their goal is to just track every time that they zone out to a lecture because developing awareness of when you zone out is really important. And then we go through different concentration strategies that they can use. And some of these are like similar to information processing strategies. So for example, activating prior knowledge before you start a task can help you concentrate. So if you review your notes before lecture, it's going to help you concentrate because you won't be lost. Self-testing. Here we talk about the illusion of knowing. So have you ever had that experience where you thought you knew something, but then come test day, you realize you didn't actually know it? Well, self-testing strategies can help students to avoid the illusion of knowing. Setting up checkpoints while you're reading to test if you understood what you just read, things like this. We also talk about Bloom's taxonomy so that students test themselves at different levels. So at lower levels, simple memorization, knowing a date, but at higher levels, more complex aspects of learning. We also talk about comprehension monitoring and little triggers that they can pay attention to figure out when they're not understanding something. Talking about time management, we go through different time management techniques like to-do lists, creating schedules, estimating how long things will take. How long does it take you to get ready in the morning, and being accurate with those estimations. We also talk about procrastination, beliefs that lead to procrastination, like perfectionism, or feeling overwhelmed by the task, like there's no way you can do it. And then strategies to prevent procrastination, like breaking a task down into smaller parts. Finally, using academic resources. Here we help students develop knowledge about the resources available to them. We talk about overcoming hesitation to use those resources, and we really try to cultivate a sense of belonging. A lot of students feel imposters when they come into college, and we try to help them think about, like, everyone's kind of feeling that way. Lots of students feel that way. You are not alone. This is a common thing. This is not because you are an imposter. This is just a common thing that students experience, and that can help them overcome sense of belonging. And we also talk about how to prepare for a help-seeking session so that you really try to learn the material on your own. So now I'd like to just reiterate that, we talked a lot about a lot of different ways to foster strategic and self-regulated learning. It can be as simple as a handout, a workshop, using learning strategies assessments, training your tutors and teachers and advisors. But what we really emphasized in this talk was developing strategic learning courses and teaching with a meta curriculum. And so some future directions that I've been considering are, I've been doing a lot of work with Acee, and so I want to continue developing strategic learning assessments in Brazilian Portuguese. And, we've done that, but develop online interventions in Brazilian Portuguese, conduct research on the effectiveness of these assessments and interventions in Brazil, provide professional development in primary, secondary, and post-secondary education, conduct qualitative and quantitative research to determine cross-cultural differences and factors that may be unique or uniquely important to students in Brazil, bridge gaps between teachers, student support specialists, researchers, administrators, and educational policymakers, overcome logistical, financial, and administrative obstacles to providing students what they need to succeed, and building a community and spirit of working together to support students. As they say, it takes a village. And in all of the grant work that I've done looking at post-secondary student success, it was never one element or one group that made a difference. It was always people coming together that made the difference. So I don't know if we have time to do another activity. We have 4 minutes, so we can get some ideas. I would like to hear from you one more time. As you reflect about what you've learned throughout this symposium, what is one specific action that you plan to take to improve the education you provide students? And when you give your response, I'd like to know if you're a teacher, a researcher, or a learning support specialist, for example, like a counselor, advisor, tutor, academic coach, something like this. Let us know your role so that we can more fully understand the specific action you want to take. It can be something small. It could be modifying your syllabus to be more culturally relevant. It could be to give students an opportunity to reflect about their learning strategies. It could be to create a learning to learn course. It could be something big. Whatever you think is something likely that you will actually do. What's something likely that you would do? One specific thing. that you plan to do maybe differently, or to add, or maybe subtract. Maybe you want to stop doing something. I'd love to hear in the chat what's one specific thing that you think you might do.
I have one answer here. Try to develop the student's motivation. The person say that she's a music teacher.
Thank you. We've heard from a music teacher, which is near and dear to my heart. I write and record music. I actually record music at the university now. We have heard from a music teacher who said her goal is to help motivate her students in music class, which is a great goal. So I appreciate you. And we've heard a lot about ideas of how you might motivate students, but thinking about in the context of music is really kind of exciting. How would we motivate students in music? I always loved to sing in choir and things like that, so I didn't need any help, but I know there were a lot of students who would not participate in singing, and they would just move their mouth and pretend like they were singing.
Give students the sense of belonging. It's another idea that comes, creating a learning community with teachers with similar needs in teaching and learning.
Okay, I have two more. One was create a community of teachers that have similar goals to improve student success, which I think is a really nice idea. We've had folks do that at our institution where they create communities of practice and the teachers work together and learn from one another. What was the other one, Emily?
The person says, I work with pedagogical support for teachers in the education municipality network. The action is to develop self-regulation in my group and multiply that for the teachers.
Wow, so someone works as a instructional pedagogist. So yes. their job is to help improve the instruction of teachers, and they're focusing specifically on self-regulation is a big goal of theirs. And so that will be interesting to see how you move forward with that goal. But part of it was to, really bring instructors together to think about how to improve self-regulation of their students.
There is another one. Try to offer teacher some moments of self-regulated learning regarding reading with the teachers.
Yeah, to provide teachers with opportunities of self-regulated learning when teaching reading.
Yeah.
The teaching of reading and self-regulation was another idea. Another one was to build community and sense of belonging in the classroom. So one of our comments was really that was their one specific action, to focus a lot on that, and that can have a big effect on students.
There is another answer that's saying plan time for developing activities in real time. Teachers are wasting a lot of time at this moment of the coronavirus, so help them to better manage their time.
Yeah, so especially with COVID-19, time planning and time management have been even more difficult. And so one individual was saying to work to help teachers plan and manage their times, as well as helping students plan and manage their time. In the coronavirus, it really is, it really is affecting students. They're not performing as well as they were before the coronavirus. Even just one anecdotal piece of evidence, I think, shows this. Typically, students, it's rare that students are failing. There's not that many, maybe 10% or something like this. But one of my friends, her son, who was straight A student, is now failing. He just has a really hard time regulating his learning, and she, as a parent, has a hard time regulating her son, working in front of the computer all day. And the class now is failing at 30%. And helping students develop the tools of self-management could help with this, as well as, adapting instruction to this new online context. It's hard. Inevitably, we're going to trip and stumble through this. But that's what we're doing. We're tripping, we're stumbling, and we're going to figure out what works, and we'll adapt. That's what humans do. So we will adapt. One last idea is
to use varied methodologies to reach the meta curriculum. A biology teacher.
A biology teacher said to use a variety of methods to address the meta curriculum. And so I appreciate you bringing up the meta curriculum again. I'm a big believer in that. We're teaching skill, will, and self-regulation alongside of your content. And, not doing any one specific thing, but using a variety of methods to address that. And in biology. So great suggestions. I really appreciate how engaging you were in the chat. And I wish I could see your faces and send my warm regards to you in person. And maybe one day we'll get to meet. And if you have any questions, ideas you want to share, collaborations you want to explore, feel free to contact me. Meu nome é Taylor Acee. I teach at Texas State University. You can find me and look me up on the internet. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your conference and that you thrive throughout the rest of this semester, or at least stay afloat during these unusual times. Obrigado. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Taylor, now I would like to ask you some questions.
Sure.
Just a moment. I'll find them here. Someone asked about getting your reference, Weinstein and Acee 2020, and I realized in your list that is the instructional models.
Yes, so those are in English. You can get a free sample if you contact the publisher, and they'll hook you up with it. Yeah, so let's see. It's H&H Publishing. You can email me and I can get you in contact with who you would need. They'll give you a free sample account so that you can explore it. But if you wanted to use it, it's a commercial product. But they'll give you a sample account so that you can check it out.
And there is another question here. How do you use this last online program you develop, the modules? Do you use it in classroom with the specific students?
That's a good question. Yeah, so it's used in a variety of different ways. The way I have used it is kind of as a textbook for a learning to learn course. So we had a 3-credit college course, and we had students complete modules. You know, maybe most weeks they were completing modules, and then they would come to class having completed that module, and then we would reinforce and re-emphasize that content. But a lot of institutions use it for different purposes. So some folks use it for students on academic probation. If they have low GPAs, then they're required to come in and take some of the modules. So they might have like an academic advisor that helps them through this. And they might not complete all of the modules. They might just target 2 or 3. So they take the Acee test, and then they work with their advisor to figure out which ones they want to complete, and they have to complete that. And that's something they have to do to get off of academic probation. Other folks buy it and then make it available, because you can get like a site license. So it's available to everyone on campus. I think up to like 500 students. And then so students who come into like a learning center or something like that, they can complete these modules. A lot of people use it for like orientation and their transition courses. Like they might have like a workshop or a 1-credit course or just a short 8-week course, and they use the modules in there. So it's used a lot of different ways.
So I think you answered the next question was about how to use it. You have already answered it. I don't know if you if there is any other questions. I'm not sure about it. And I would like people to put one word about this conference. Maybe they can write in the chat how this conference meant to them in a word, so that you can have like a one word. I will ask them if they could do so. I would like to anyway. I don't know if there is any question coming. We have some time, and I would like to tell you that it was very, very good, your conference. I like a lot, and you can count on me to put your future directions on. I'm very activated with the ideas, and so I would like my students to ask people to. Now the words are coming. The words are coming. I'm going to try to translate to you the words. Just a moment. Motivation, Taylor. Contagious, belonging.
Motivation. Should I repeat these?
Contagion.
Contagion.
Belonging, motivation.
Motivation.
Clarifying. Learning. Inspiring. Learning again. Wisdom. Syntony. Just a moment. Inspiration. Enriching. Inspiration again. Gratitude. Gratitude, yes. Empathy. Wonderful. New ideas. Love. My colleague, José Aloysio Buzunek, who is an expert, one of the most famous expert in motivation, is saying that he liked a lot the way you approach your conference using this interactive approach with the audience. He liked it a lot.
Some people like the interactive approach with the audience. I think it's important to have time to share and consolidate. If there's anything that we learn about learning, it's that it has more to do with what you self-generate rather than what someone tells you. What sticks is what you generate inside of your head, and what you say is what will stick with you. So it's important to give opportunities for people to speak their mind, because that is what sticks.
Thank you. Inspiration again. Thank you. Enlightening. Incredible.
Enlightening. Incredible.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Invaluable. Knowledgeable. Knowledge. Enriching. Empathy. Empathize.
Empathy.
Empathy. Proving. Thank you. Fabulous.
Fabulous.
Belonging. Yeah, we are planning to do maybe in the end like a cloud of words.
Cloud.
Yeah.
We'll do a word cloud.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I don't know if there is any additional question.
Well, I did have 2 questions on my slide that I didn't ask about, but if the audience has questions, that might be a better use of our time. But I was going to ask about any obstacles that folks thought they were standing in their way of attaining their goals, of teaching strategic and self-regulated learning, and how we might overcome those obstacles.
I would like to, there is one more, there are 2 more comments, that your methodological approach keep everybody highly concentrated. Your approach also strengthens the self-efficacy of a person.
Someone was saying that the methodological approach to the presentation helped strengthen self-efficacy and help.
Excellent explanation.
Excellent explanation. Thank you.
Maybe I can read one comment to you that I haven't a chance to read. Let's see if I find. I don't know where I can find the. I see many positive comments. We have, like, in the audience, professors from a lot of different fields. Law school, you have
a lot of people in the audience from different disciplines, which is wonderful. Law school, we've heard from a music teacher already.
We have also gratitude. The last word is gratitude.
Biology. Reading, we've heard from. I know we have researchers and graduates out there.
There was a person that was an ed psych researcher, and her comment was that she would try to work with students in the beginning of the university courses, so that she made them like protagonists of their actions. This was a comment that I didn't had a chance to read, that I found here now. Someone say, could be possible stay here and talk about self-regulation. Amazing time, Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We can talk more about self-regulation too. One of the great things about self-regulation is I don't think that there's really a ceiling. It's something that you can continue to improve in throughout your life. And a lot of these learning strategies and skills related to skill, will, and self-regulation. They're all things that you can continue to be better at. And so it's really lifelong learning that we're trying to teach students, and that we're continuing to try to improve in ourselves. It's an endless point of focus for us to become better, to be more optimal in what we do. And students, that message to students is important, and helping them to take on that responsibility is another important aspect of that. You know, it's something that not that they just do for you, they're doing it for you, the teacher. No, they're doing it for themselves. And it's something that they will continue to do after college and into the workplace. Especially with the changing demands of the workplace. We don't have as many industrial line jobs as we used to, where, you know, now things are changing. You have to be able to learn and adapt and change as the workforce changes. In the past, you could have one career. Now, on average, people have 4 careers. They change throughout their lives. So being self-regulated is critical to be able to learn new things and adapt. That's the whole point of it. I mean, as a baby, you have to focus a lot just to walk. Over time, that becomes automatic. The same is true with a lot of the things we do with self-regulation. We're trying to direct our focus on something that we want to make automatic. We want our study habits to be effective and efficient and automatic, but we need to think about them so that we can regulate them to be better. And once we fix a little aspect of it, that can become automatic. We don't have to think about it as much as we used to. We can think about something else to improve ourselves. That's the idea of self-regulation, and it can continue to go like that for forever. I mean, I was not a good writer to begin with, and I'm still trying to be a better writer. Writing is something that has no ceiling. So the other part of that, the motivation part that I think is important to think about is, you know, as a student, you want goals that are meaningful to you, life goals that are meaningful to you. And education fits into that often. And so, you know, if you're self-regulating towards something you don't care about, what's the point? We have to be self-regulating towards something we care about, and figuring out what you want in life, what is important to you. Helping guide students through that self-exploration is very important. Otherwise, it's hard to explain why self-regulation is important. Why would I want to self-regulate towards something I don't care about? So the motivation part of all that is critical, and helping students to figure out what subjects they like to learn about and how that can be used in a professional context, what careers they want to get involved with, and how they want to help society change for the better. That is a big motivation. Wealth, status, that can motivate people. But what we find in research too is that what's very motivational to people is helping others to help society improve. That can be a very passionate reason to drive people. And so to help students figure out how they want to help change the world. So those are some last thoughts as you asked me to talk a little bit more about self-regulation.
Taylor, I also would like to read one more comment here. Thank you so much for sharing with your knowledge with us. You were very generous and has motivated us greatly. And I would like to thank you so much as well, and make this last comment my comment as well, and let you know that I really feel sorry for not being able to have this event being translated from Portuguese to English, from Portuguese to English, so that you could understand what's going on. You could attend some sessions. Anyway, we are going to have at 4 o'clock Brazilian time, we are going to have like the formal closing session. Maybe you can attend, but it will be in Portuguese if you have some free time. And we are going to do this, the awards. We're going to review who were the posters who received the awards. Do you remember I told you about the awards? That the awards would have some names. You know, I will tell them how it worked. My colleague will tell them who were the winners. Then we are going to have like a surprise, two end surprises. So if you have some time, you can stay with us. That will be great. Otherwise, I can try to email you the surprises, you know, that we did to end the event. I'm really a little bit sad to end this event, because I think it's such an important event for us. And we are receiving very nice comments about the quality of the events. My colleagues are very happy about that. So I would like to thank you one more time. And I also, if you want to be with us, feel free. If it's I'll
to join you, would I stay in this room, or?
Yes, if you stay in this room, you are.
And are we still on going to Google right now?
Yeah, no, you are going to be. You are in Google, and your transmission is going to YouTube. But what we are planning to do is we're going to have a little break, like a half an hour break, and we'll come back on at 4 o'clock Brazilian time. Then it will be the closing section.
I want to hear people speaking in Portuguese and feel the feeling of not understanding. I like to have this feeling, just to hear what the conversation sounds like. And I like to immerse myself in that kind of situation. So it would be wonderful for me to have an opportunity to be with you all like that. Yes.
Yeah, and if I have a chance, you can ask me in the chat, and I can translate a little quickly to you.
I've been copying and pasting things into Google Translate throughout this conference, and I've been reading it myself. I do it all the time.
I will be very happy.
Don't say anything mean about me.
No,
is that my translator?
No, everything is all nice words about you, very nice words. And so we're going to have a break, like a half an hour break, and then at 4 o'clock Brazilian time, you can join us again in this room. Great. Or you can stay if you prefer, whatever. But we need to have this short break, and then we come back.
Sounds great. I'll see you in a half hour.
Our closing session is not long, but I'm going to tell them how we thought about the awards, what the awards are, and if you could be in, it would be very, very nice. And I'm reading some comments here that we are receiving congratulations for the organization of the events. They consider it with high excellence. And they are congratulating us. That's really very nice. So don't. I'm talking to the audience in general. Don't go away. There are the award session, and also 2 nice surprises for you. So wait, and Taylor will be with us. That's the third surprise. Very nice surprise. We're going to have Taylor with us in the closing section. He will do his best to understand Portuguese. And I do apologize. I wish we could have like the money to do that, to have you and Elena join us in another approach. But unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, everything got worse, and we couldn't do that. We couldn't have this money.
Well,
maybe
whether for work or for a vacation, I will be to Brazil in the future.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah. So we're gonna leave for half some minutes. Yes. And
I'll look to try to go to Bebel Gilberto concert, because I listen to that music even though I don't understand Portuguese.
Okay. So see you everybody in half an hour. Wonderful, Taylor, wonderful.
Yeah, sorry I ended a little early. I guess that was...
No problem. I think people is really tired, and we have...
I threw a lot of information at them, and I asked them to participate. I figured they probably...
Yeah, you know, that I was really glad about that we have plenty of time to discuss, to talk, to give you our feedback also. So it was very nice. There is someone saying in the chat, we hope we have more events like this. It's very nice to be here. So we are very glad, because you can't imagine how tough it was for me, for Jussara and Lourdes, my colleagues, to do these events. You know, my colleagues are saying, Lourdes is saying hi to you.
Hey.
Jussara, would you say hi to Taylor? I think Jussara has gone into a break. He will come soon. So maybe we could have this break a little bit. Yeah. You might be tired. The translator, Roberto, is saying, it's a pleasure to be with you. What a wonderful conference. Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you for helping with everything and making this so easy for us, and for translating my words. I really appreciate that. I can't imagine doing that. It would have been, I told my wife, she said, you were speaking very fast. I was like, they said, you know, go ahead, they'll translate.
No problem.
I could tell the audience understood what I was saying, and that was because of you. So I appreciate that.
Muito obrigada, Roberto, mais uma vez. Muito obrigada. Depois a gente conversa, né? Se você puder me dar uma folguinha. Bom, eu tenho até terça, né? Dá para a gente resolver tudo, sim. Tá bom? Muito agradecida. Então, maybe you can come like in half an hour. Would this break be good for you? Okay.